Very hectic day, so we decided to bring in the experts. Jeremy Rosenthal, a lawyer with the Texas Defense Fund, joins us now to help us break down and understand what is happening with the Robert Roberson case. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you for having me. It has been a crazy, dramatic day. A lot of high stakes, a lot of high drama. So as it sits right now, Mr. Roberson is on death row. He was scheduled to be executed this evening. Probably about 2 hours ago, he has a temporary stay of execution. That stay was because a legislative committee subpoenaed him to testify. The Texas Criminal Jurisprudence Committee in Austin subpoenaed him to testify, and a Travis County judge ordered that the execution be halted and that Mr. Roberson be allowed to testify. That is going to be appealed perhaps as soon as this evening.
So that leads me right into my next question. This execution warrant ends at midnight. What would the process be in order to get this man executed before that warrant expires?
Well, if so, you've got a really big mess, is what you have, and it's hard for even the lawyers to untangle here. And you've got a separation of powers issue. You've got the courts going against the legislature, but at the moment, what you have is you've got a Travis County lower level judge who has blocked this execution. So if it's not carried out by midnight, that would mean that you just get another warrant. But what could happen is Attorney General Paxton, from what I've read, is appealing to the Texas Supreme Court because now it's a civil subpoena. We have two Supreme Courts in Texas, if this wasn't confusing enough. We have a Court of Criminal Appeals, which is the Supreme Court for criminal law, and then we have a civil Supreme Court. The Court of Criminal Appeals today, by one vote, denied a stay. So now the Texas Supreme Court will decide whether or not this subpoena will stand, and they may do it as early as this evening, before midnight, potentially.
And I wanted to ask next your opinion on, or essentially what you gather from this quote. This is what the U.S. Supreme Court, we're adding another Supreme Court in there, the largest one in the land. On the last page of their opinion for Roberson v. Texas, they said this means only one avenue for relief remains open, an executive reprieve. In Texas, in virtually every other state and the federal government, the executive has the power to exercise discretion to grant clemency and effect sentences at any stage after an individual is convicted. What does that mean? Can the governor just wave his magic wand and make this all stop? Is he the one that can untangle the yarn?
The governor can grant on his own a 30-day reprieve, and in fact, Justice Sonia Sotomayor suggested that in her opinion that he grant Mr. Roberson a 30-day reprieve. For a full pardon to be granted, it has to be recommended by the parole board, and the parole board did not do that. They in fact rejected that. So the governor does not have the legal power at the moment to grant full clemency. He can delay this by 30 days, and he may wait and see how things go with the courts this evening, and then he may step in at the last minute. There's a lot of moving parts here.
A lot of moving parts, and I just have to ask, should this execution not happen tonight, what are the next steps?
I think there's a lot of reasons to call this thing off. When you have a shaken baby case, in most capital cases, where you're putting somebody to death, the question is who committed this horrible crime? In this instance, we're asking ourselves, was a crime committed at all? He would be the very first person in the United States to be executed for a shaken baby case. And so the science is evolving year after year, decade after decade. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, for the first time just last week, indicated that the science behind a previous conviction was unsound. And we may learn more in 5 years. We may learn more in 10 years about all of these things. And we've got the records to do it. There's not a lot of reasons to do it right now.
Now, my next question, and this is one that just popped in my head. We've had countless doctors, even the original medical examiner, saying we've gotten this cause of death wrong when we first wrote it down. It's actually natural causes. This child died, unfortunately, of pneumonia, of a lung infection. What does that mean for the court system? To us as just viewers watching the courts play this out, we see the original experts saying, we got it wrong. It's not shaken baby. It actually is pneumonia, a perfectly natural cause of death. And yet we then see the courts not doing anything about it. What does that mean, and how does that work?
It's really hard. You got to remember that when we write these laws, we write them to for 10,000, 20,000 people at a time. And that can yield some pretty bad results in instant cases. Take, for example, if you had a reversal every time evidence changed in a case, you would have to, if one inmate says to another inmate, I'm actually the one who did that crime that this guy is in for, uh, people in that situation lie. They write letters. They want better deals for themselves. So even on claims where people are saying, where witnesses have recanted, where people after the fact have said, no, 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 this isn't right, even then the courts kind of are skeptical of it. You have a judgment, you had a jury, you had a judgment that was in place, and there are some mechanisms to overturn that. Texas has created a few of what we call writs of habeas corpus, which allow us to reopen cases in limited circumstances. One of them being if the science is changed or if the science is new. So there are mechanisms to do this, and this case, again, has got everybody just really divided, especially if you have a bipartisan showing in the Texas House. This committee, in a bipartisan way, subpoenaed him, both Democrats and Republicans. We don't know what Governor Abbott thinks about this, but we know that Attorney General Paxton is pursuing this execution. So there's a division there. We don't know exactly where the lines are, but it shows you just the depth of understanding and the depth of involvement of the legislature, which is actually very unprecedented.
And that's something that I also wanted to ask. We came across this subpoena. I actually found out about it on my Twitter feed. I have a bunch of other reporters down in Austin that I'm close friends with, and everyone was blowing up, sending screenshots of Chairman Leach's subpoena for a man on death row. Has this ever happened before, and what's the precedent for that?
I've never seen anything like it before. It's extremely creative. If there's a drawback to it, this hearing that they're subpoenaing him for is on the 21st of October, which will come and go. It buys everybody a little bit of time if this works, right? That's next week, I think. So it buys everybody just a little bit of time. Maybe it's enough space for them to get that extra vote at the Court of Criminal Appeals. Remember, they voted 5-4 on this. Maybe it's enough time to get the Texas Parole and Pardons Board to kind of reverse course. Or maybe it's enough time for the governor to step in and grant a 30-day reprieve. So it gives everybody a little more breathing room here if this works. And it's very creative. I've never seen anything like it, and it's a real separation of powers issue that we just don't see it.
And now my final question on the subpoena issue is, could the Texas Supreme Court throw out that subpoena in order to continue with the execution?
We'll see. We're sort of in uncharted waters. The Texas Supreme Court could potentially do what's called quashing the subpoena, depending, but that's complicated, and that might not be exactly what they do. Or they may just simply order that the lower court in Travis County does not have the power to overrule the execution warrant, which I think is probably the more likely way to argue that. But again, this is really super complicated stuff, and to do it all in 5 hours would be pretty crazy. But high stakes drama and a lot of moving parts here, a lot of emotion, and some very powerful issues.
Alrighty, Mr. Rosenthal, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wanted to let our viewers know before I let you get back?
It's going to be a long night on this one, and this story can take several turns overnight. When we wake up tomorrow morning, we'll see what happened here. And again, the criminal justice system, it's not perfect. It's man-made, and it lags behind the times. Always has with technology, um, and with medicine and those types of advances, and it always will. And we sort of have to recognize that. Um, but if nothing else happens here, if this execution does go through, you can expect the legislature to address this in the next session. That's a very small consolation for Mr. Roberson, though.
Alrighty, once again, Mr. Rosenthal, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you breaking down some of those key issues.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.